All right, what is up, everybody? Today we're gonna have a real quick one. We had some readings on the Combahee River Collective. We want to talk about Black feminism and introduce a couple important terms, including intersectionality and Marxism. So that's pretty much what we're gonna do today. Like I said, it's gonna be quick. And so yeah, I just want to go over this. The Combahee River Collective was founded in 1974. And it included early iterations of intersectionality. And so I want us to talk about what is intersectionality, okay? Intersectionality is an important term that you will hear probably not only in courses like this, but it's one of those terms that has entered the general public's lexicon language. Intersectionality, and it comes out of Black feminist thought, and it is the basis for it's foundational for a lot of what we now know in ethnic studies and sociology and things like that. I have this book right here, Black Feminist Thought by Patricia Hill Collins, who is like a pretty like seminal figure, I would say, in Black feminist thought and in sort of like philosophies of intersectionality. So intersectionality, it refers to the interlocking oppressions that people can experience simultaneously in their life, or a matrix of oppressions and privileges that people might, right? But in the case of coming out of Black feminism, you know, you have early iterations like Frances Beale's Double Jeopardy, which was thinking of similar things, you know. But, you know, speaking from Black women's experience, they were saying like, hey, you know, we can actually make social theory out of straight from our own experiences in the world, because Black women are saying, well, we're experiencing oppression on multiple fronts as women, right? As Black people. And for the most part, like the women involved in the Combahee River Collective, as working class people in a capitalist society. So when we consider all these different it's like a matrix of oppression. You know, and so Black women were looking for something where it's like, well, there's no real place in the white feminist movement for the issues that Black women want to address, and at the same time, the like Black Power movement, like the Black Panthers and stuff, were often very male-centric. So Black feminists were finding a space for themselves where there wasn't, right? There wasn't in the white feminist movement. There wasn't in the Black Power movement. But as such, they also had some differences between some of the other movements. So while a lot of white feminists had sort of a separatist mentality, men as the source of oppression, patriarchy, separation from men, Black women were saying, well, Black men are our allies in the struggle for racial justice. So why would we do that? Right? We are both experiencing being Black in the United States, for example. So why would Black women want to sever themselves from Black men? How does that serve the purposes of racial justice? Right? So that's for an example. They were not gender separatists. And, you know, similarly, while like the Black Panthers might have been focusing on issues of race, there was also gender oppression coming out of the racial justice movements themselves, that needed to be confronted. And then finally, it's the role of capitalism, right? In many ways, by focusing on not just race and gender, but also class, it was what the Combahee River Collective was doing was also an extension of Marxism. So what is Marxism? Marxism comes, from, many of y'all have probably heard of Karl Marx. That's where the term comes from. But it's really, Marxism is just really a critique of capitalism and a science of revolution, of how to get free from capitalist oppression. And so this focus on class extends Marxism, which was, normally we think of it going back to ancient Europe and stuff like that. Well, what is it? What is this sort of class analysis? What does this sort of capitalist critique mean for Black women in 1974? Right? So it's an extension of Marxist theory as well. And when we're talking about Marxism, we're really just talking about a critique of capitalism. After the end of, by law segregation, post-civil rights movement, groups like the Black Panthers were moving towards thinking about economics, right? Because what good is, we desegregated a lunch counter, but you can't afford a hamburger, right? What about rising wages, or dropping wages and rising costs of living? What about, the way that capitalists, big corporations and stuff are invested in imperialism all over the globe, war, in the prison system at home, et cetera, that oppresses people of color in the United States and people all over the third world, so-called third world. And so that is something that also, the Combahee River Collective were internationalists, much like the Black Panthers were. Thinking about things globally as well. These are global systems of oppression. So our resistance can and should also be global. Right? Yeah. And so something like capitalism being the root of race and gender oppression. The idea of identity politics, which sometimes you'll hear that term used in a really negative light nowadays, identity politics. But the Combahee River Collective was talking about this in terms of like the personal is political. When we think about our own personal experiences, we can start to make certain political connections. And for Black women experiencing multiple forms of oppression and then talking about it and theorizing from it, there's a lot that can be learned from that, right? And that's what they're saying. They're building theory from their own standpoint. And they wanted to build coalitions with others because they are thinking in terms of these multiple interlocking, intersectional forms of oppression. They want to build coalitions with other people because there is shared stakes, right? And if they believe that Black women are experiencing all these interlocking oppressions, freeing Black women would free everyone because it would have to dismantle all these systems, right? So yeah. So what this means is that when we see that there is a synthesis of racial, sexual, class, and other forms of oppression that actually create the conditions for our lives, then our radical politics can come directly out of our identity. And that's what they mean by identity politics. All these different forms of oppression that are experienced simultaneously. Yeah, so, and like I said, not only extending Marxism, but also theorizing Black women's experience in a way that wasn't being done that much in the 70s and stuff like that. Um, yeah, but there's a lot of difficulties in that, right? There's a quote here in the statement, in the Combahee River collective statement, when you read it: being on the bottom, we would have to fight the world. If Black radical feminists are understanding that they're essentially finding themselves at or near the bottom of racial, gender, sexual, and class capitalist hierarchies, yeah, it's like war with the world, right? So, yeah, that sort of view coming from one's personal identity is foundational in Black feminism and foundational in various disciplines that you might encounter at the college level, including ethnic studies. So, happy reading. I'm looking forward to hearing what y'all think about it.